Yeah. Throughout writing this service this week, that's the one song I kept coming back to. So I hope you see that when I'm done. But there we go. Anyone want to ring the opening bell? Okay. Yep. Okay. Very nice. Okay. I titled the service Paying Attention to Your Life, and I'll explain that later. Okay. Opening words I have today. I'll read these by myself, and the next slide I have a reading that I'd like us all to do together. Spirit of life, call our collective attention to this precise moment, the threshold between then and now, the moment upon which we hang our honest promises like portraits chiseled and framed by our own hands, imperfectly and together. Come, let us worship together. And these were by Samantha Lyon Wilson. And then chalice lighting. This is the covenant that we say every time we meet at the UU congregation in Phoenix. I personally like it very much, so I thought I'd share it again with you all. And together, if you will. Love. Oh. Good? All right. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to share our strength in fellowship, thus do we covenant. Yeah, and then greet one another. Okay. Yeah. Next we have joys and concerns. If anyone wants to come up, tell the joys or concerns in the mic and drop a rock in our water, you're more than welcome to. I also have the live chat open for anyone watching online to share their joys and concerns, and I can share them with the congregation or the society.
Joy for the weather yesterday. Wasn't it beautiful? But, then there's always that concern because it was beautiful here, but other parts of the country are seeing weather conditions that aren't so lovely.
Well, along with the great weather yesterday, we are in spring election season, and we had lit dropping going on across the city of River Falls for the spring elections that are taking place April 7th. And it was an absolute delight to see the support for democracy with a number of people who showed up to get out and ensure that people in River Falls know that there is an election on April 7th and how to engage in it, which was the education we were doing. So that's a joy that democracy is hopefully not dead, but thriving. Let's do this.
Because of the good weather yesterday, I had a chance to check on the beehive to see if the bees survived the winter. They usually don't, and they didn't this year, so that's the bad part, the sad part, the concerned part. The good part is they left us about 100 pounds of honey. So I can't harvest it right now because you have to wait till very warmer weather for the honey to flow. But we will have UU honey again this year, but you have to wait fresh, year-old. And there's still some honey left in the kitchen, so along with some jam that's been sitting there for months. So take a look, and free will donation. Thanks.
Anyone else? I have two joys in the chat, joys and concerns in the chat. One from my mom, Colin Lifshitz. And she says that she's sending love from Phoenix. Hi, Mom. It's great to have you here. I'm not sure who this is, but there's a joy and concern for the No Kings protesters next Saturday, saying be safe and be free. If there's anyone else in person.
Just a concern for all of our military personnel that are involved in what's going on in the Middle East, and all the people that are going through that uncertainty in the daily experience of being in an active war. Thanks.
There's no one else. I'd just like to say joy from last week is that I was able to go back home this past week for spring break and see all my family again, which was very nice. And then if there's no one else, I have the big rock for all the joys and concerns left unsaid today. So this March's theme is paying attention. That's pretty much all I got on that. But this is generally what our service is going to be about today. And then for those of you that don't know me or know me kind of well, but you don't want to seem rude by asking about me again, I'm Colin Lifshitz. I'm a lifelong UU, and before coming here, I spent the last 12 years attending the UU congregation in Phoenix, which you may know from the art chalice sliding from today. I'm a sophomore at UW River Falls and study chemistry. In addition, I'm a national championship winning football player with the UWRF football team. And usually the next question I get is, why in the world would you leave the warm Arizona weather to come to the freezing Midwest? For those of you wondering, it was 106 this past week in Phoenix. But really, though, I wanted to play college football more than anything at the end of high school, and there are no Division III colleges in Arizona. So I knew I was going to come up here, and I ended up visiting River Falls in February, my senior year of high school, and got a quick introduction to the Midwest weather with what felt like 25 degrees and the windiest day of the year. Needless to say, I fell in love with the time pretty quickly. Yeah, it's a great place. To introduce this service, I have 3 mindsets I want to talk about that I've learned since coming up here that have helped me a lot with paying attention to my life. The first one is what I call get to. It's pretty simple, but when I first came to River Falls, I was bombarded with the phrase get to. I had no idea what people were talking about, but whenever someone said something like, I have to wake up at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning to practice, a get to was usually quick to follow. Not only with the players, but I've heard stories from our coaches that whenever the phrase have to is said in our coach's office, they're usually quicker to respond with the get to. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense to me. What really sold me on get to was listening to a podcast from our coach who introduced the program to the phrase get to. Side note, turns out he read a book about the mindset of get to, so you all are getting a telephone version of get to that went through the book, through my coach, through me, and now to you. My coach was talking about how much switching his brain to a get to mindset impacted his life. Through him, I realized how much of a profound impact it could have on my life. Throughout adopting this mindset, I've learned that your mindset can change your entire outlook on life. The more and more I've forced myself to use the phrase get to, the less I use have to, even just in my head quickly, to no one else in the room but in my own head, the more I'm looking forward to activities in life that I was dreading before. For example, when I'm exhausted from a 6 a.m. lift and I just want to take a nap and I start to think that I have to go to class, I just say to myself, get to, and I get to go to class today. I then subconsciously start to get excited about being able to get to go to class. Saying get to after I hear someone saying have to has gotten so automatic in my head that people close to me in my life can get very annoyed whenever I say get to around them. My favorite is when they catch themselves before saying have to in front of me and end up saying get to without me getting to say anything. The next one I want to talk about is something called the grass is greener where you water it. This came pretty recently when I don't really have as much experience with it, but I can see how much of an impact it can make on my life and others' lives. After our head coach left about a month ago to go to a different school, there were a lot of players considering transferring schools to either follow him or seek different opportunities elsewhere. For many teammates, this seems like the best option. Later that week, our strength coach said something that will stick with me probably for a very long time. He talked about how, especially in the situation we were in at the time, the grass can look a lot greener elsewhere. This means, like, when looking through the fence with the cows, like in the image above, it can make you feel envious of what others have and make you might want to leave the place you're in right now without noticing what you have where you are. The grass is greenest where you water it reminds you that leaving what you have to seek something better instead of ensuring where you are can be the best that it can possibly be. That's a run-on sentence, or unfinished sentence. Yeah, the phrase is made a very positive impact on my life just in the past month. It constantly reminds me to think about how I can pay attention to my life and myself in an effort to make as many parts of my life as best as they can possibly be. Simple examples of my life are doing extra homework, studying with a classmate after class, and doing extra work in the weight room or with coaches. I try to constantly ask myself, how can I water my grass today to make my life the best it can be? The next thing that I like to think about is, what would you from 5 years ago think about? This is especially helpful for me when things get extremely hard and get so in my own head that I can't think straight. I usually end up thinking to myself, what would me from 5 years ago think or say? It's simple, but it puts things into perspective for me. About 5-ish years ago was when I started high school fresh out of the pandemic. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my future, but I had just recently started playing football, and I was finally able to start picking some of my own classes and figuring out what I myself really loved, slowly but surely. There was always a thought in the back of my mind, that I loved challenging myself through athletics and academics, and I kind of wanted to pursue that, but I didn't really know. Long story short, I was kind of awkward and didn't know what to do with myself 5 years ago. One of the times that this hit me hard and that helped me a lot was something that happens to athletes a lot more than they care to admit, especially for me in my first month of college football practices. I got hit with the "what the actual heck am I doing here" bug. It might be a little more extreme in my head, but especially in that first month, everyone around me felt so much bigger, faster, stronger, and I couldn't even look most people in the eye. It felt like every rep I was getting my ass kicked by people who had been playing college football from before I'd even started playing football. That feeling, it just sucks. The scariest part about that is the dread of feeling like I was falling out of love with the sport that I love so much, and especially the sport that I loved the sport that brought me to this amazing town in the first place. It can get to that point where I can't even get to my way out of it. Fast forward to after a day filled with feeling like I'm faking it through meetings, practice, and lifts, I can finally think to myself, usually on a walk by myself in nature, to think. It clears my head. I think about myself from 5 years ago. If I were to go back to 5 years ago, my high school freshman self, and tell me that I was playing college football, challenging myself with a major that usually gets the reaction that, wow, I could never do that, chemistry, and challenging myself in a way that I enjoy pretty much all the time, words wouldn't be able to properly contain my excitement. What this boils down to is that taking a second to appreciate all that you've done in the past 5, or for some others 10 or 20 years, is something that most people don't do enough. Most people especially don't give themselves enough credit for how awesome they are. And having that constant reminder in your life can be very important to get you out of those feelings that just keep kicking you in the ass over and over again. This went a little quicker than I thought it would, but I think it's okay. I know this entire service is really geared towards my life with football, and especially with football and classes. I was thinking about trying to put myself in others' shoes to see how these mindsets would work out for others or just people in my life. But in the wise words of Reverend Christine Dance, the hardest part about writing a good service is knowing when to stop. So instead, I strongly encourage you to take 5 minutes in the rest of the day in nature. That usually helps me. About how any of these mindsets can apply to you. You know you so much better than I know you. For me, it always helps to be in nature. And if you need, I'm always willing to talk and give you my 2 cents, but that is very individual and up to you. And yep, I have questions on if anyone has any questions and they're willing to ask. But I guess service got out a little early today. If anyone has questions, right now is a good time. If not, you can just start wrapping it up. Yeah.
So how do you think your experience growing up with you in your hometown, how do you think that experience influenced the way you
I think especially with being UU, it challenges you and almost forces you to have an open mind about pretty much everything. So growing up that way, I've heard that some other more orthodox religions could be kind of force you into thinking, not force you, but encourage you to think the way they think. And growing up UU has challenged me to not just take things at face value, but to really tear them apart and look more deep into it and see what it's really about, and to see how I can use things the way I want them to. One example is throughout the program called Coming of Age, if you're familiar with it, is basically, it's a UU thing that happens usually when you're around 12 to 14. In my congregation, one of the things we did was pretty much every week after our service, we would go to a different place, like a mosque or a temple or a church, and figure out what we believe. And that helped me, from a young age, develop these critical thinking skills that help me think and believe what I want to think instead of being told what to believe. Yeah.
Thank you so much for this talk.
Yeah, of course.
Question, you mentioned that you have a love for football, passion for football. You also have a passion for nature. When I think of football, I think of loud, I think of impact, I think of contact, adrenaline. When I think of nature, I think of something a little bit different. Can you tell me how the two of those might tie within you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually never really thought about that, but thinking about that now, I think it's a great dichotomy, I guess is the right word. Pretty much everything in football, lifts and practice are just high energy, high intensity, just everything you got constantly. So I guess for me, taking a second to just think about nothing and walk in nature or something of that sort, just occasionally can help myself just bring myself back and kind of just reset myself whenever I do it. Yeah.
I was going to ask a similar question, but first an observation. I like the get to attitude. A lot of us are retired here, and there are a lot of things we don't have to do anymore. So now we have to think about what we get to do, and that's a challenge when you first are retired. So I was looking at football and chemistry. So for football, you got a lot of sports that you can choose from. Why did football attract you? And then the same thing about chemistry. What motivated you to take on the science of chemistry as opposed to other sciences or other majors that you could have selected?
I'll start with chemistry. Basically asking why did I choose chemistry over others. I like to say when I was however young, my placemat on the table was a periodic table. So I was kind of raised into it. My parents themselves are both scientists. That has always interested me, but the asking of why constantly throughout my childhood, which was exemplified through UU, because all the adults there are always willing to answer that question, really helped me, has just molded my brain into a STEM sort of mindset. So I always pretty much knew I was going into that. My junior year, I took AP chemistry, and I really liked it. So that's when I kind of knew I wanted to go into chemistry. But it kind of gets to I just like solving puzzles and knowing how things work. And that's pretty much exactly what chemistry is. And it's not easy, which I kind of enjoy. And then for football too, I've played a lot of different sports, pretty much my entire 4 years. I was a constant 3-sport athlete, mainly with football, wrestling, and track and field. I enjoyed wrestling because it was probably one of the hardest things I've done. And track was interesting, but kind of boring to me. And the main thing I love so much about football is the team aspect of it, working together to overcome challenges. Again, is what it comes down to. 11 guys on the field at one time, and if one guy messes up, the whole play is done pretty much. So I really enjoy that aspect of almost getting to work with so many other players and such a tight community is not something I saw very much with other sports, but I don't know. Yeah.
I wondered if you ever heard about John Hill that used to be here.
I don't think I have.
He was a chemist. He taught in chemistry, I think, in school, in the university, and he also wrote books of poetry. And he loved nature, and he loved to walk, and it's just interesting. And he was very important here in this church. He was one of the, I don't know if he was the founding member, but he was, I think, came pretty early here. Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Huh. And also, did you always love nature growing up? And why was that? Because your parents loved it, or?
Just this, I guess, serenity of it. I don't know. Growing up in Phoenix, I loved hiking a lot, which I grew up in a couple of different places, but mainly Kentucky before Phoenix. Oh. And Kentucky is a lot greener than Phoenix, and I think it's a lot easier to enjoy being in nature when it's green and pretty outside, yeah. especially when the weather's nice. But it's kind of, I guess for some people it might be harder to enjoy rocks in 100-degree weather, pretty much is what Phoenix has. So that almost challenges me to find the beauty in, going on a hike, even when the easiest thing to do is staying inside and enjoying the AC. So just the serenity, how many different people find different beauties.
So how old were you when you moved from Kentucky?
About 5 or 6. Oh. So I don't remember it that much.
Yeah, because you were just a kid.
Yeah.
Huh.
There's just one behind you. Oh.
What was your earliest experience with religious education at a UU organization?
From what I remember, I believe my mom could tell you better, but we went to a UU congregation in Lexington, Kentucky. I really don't remember that at all, but I do remember throughout services in Phoenix, we'd have like opening words And then the main thing was that all the kids would go around to a separate area and do what we called religious education, RE, where it was usually like a story and an activity and something to like kind of promote a message or an ideal. And then that kind of eventually turned into the coming of age and OWL classes, which is our whole lives, which is kind of sexual education. So that's pretty much that's like the earliest thing I remember about. Yeah, I don't know if I couldn't really go into much more detail than that though.
Okay, I have to ask you, do you like organic chemistry?
I'm in it right now. I'm enjoying it to an extent.
Yeah, because it's solving puzzles.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering if you had an epiphany yet when you're solving, like, and seeing that almost like your team and doing a certain play, seeing that, you know, a certain compound coming on the outside and just wondering if your mind works that way.
I can't say I've drawn any parallels yet, but I can see what you're talking about. Like, yes, that is interesting about the team aspect and using the correct reactants and to get the right products, which, you know, using the right play calls to get the right outcome on the field. I could definitely see that.
Is coaching attractive to you, maybe in the future?
Maybe.
That's solving.
We'll see how it is. I could definitely see myself doing it, but yeah, it's interesting. I like that.
I'm just curious about your and your teammates' response to what I would take as betrayal by your coach.
Yeah. It was a shock, especially after winning the championship. He'd always said, I don't want to, my plan A is not to leave, but if I get an offer I can't refuse, I'm not going to refuse it, which was kind of like always in the back of our heads. But, you know, we'd gotten to, you know, late February and we were like, okay, so he's probably going to stay. It was hard for a lot of people, especially seniors, because that's, you know, the only coach they've ever known here. So a lot of people had a lot of different reactions, but I think when I've asked other coaches, I think the overwhelming response is, you know, it's the best for him and his family, so we can't really blame him. Which I don't know if they actually think that or they just want to say that to us, but I think that kind of sets the right tone, because it's kind of like you just got to forgive and forget. Like, it's not about him anymore. We have a great new head coach, and we want to win another one. So
Now you get to play for a new coach.
Exactly, yeah. And he gets to get his ass out of here.
Just a second.
That's all. I'll leave it at that. I won't say anything else.
I want to thank you for some inspiration, and that is the placemat, because we have grandchildren, and, you know, I'm a chemist, so thank you.
Oh, of course. I'm sure my parents will love that.
Colin, I just want to thank you also for a couple of things. One is you didn't tell us what to believe. You shared your personal experience, and then the audience is able to relate to you as a human being, and then we are free to take what sings to us and leave the rest. And that's just perfect. And thank you so much for putting yourself out there.
Of course.
For being willing to give this talk today. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, guys.
Agreed, Colin, thank you. Your comment, the grass is greener where you water it, made me start to think about this organization. And
Absolutely.
during COVID, we came very close to dying. The membership was small. there was not much energy. There wasn't anybody willing to do the jobs that needed to be done. And of course, we were mostly online. But there was enough energy, and some people, thank you, Allison, especially, who said, we can water this organization. We don't need to leave and go elsewhere. This organization can exist. Let's water it and watch it grow, and we see that happening. And you, I think, also were a key to me in believing in this, because here's a young person who's coming to our very aging society, showing me that there's still hope that we can rebuild and be important for a wide range of people. So thank you for that saying that made me think about the importance of this society and how we need to keep watering what we have here. So,
Absolutely.
We should get Mom on chat.
I'll look. My mom has a couple comments I didn't see, but she said I was dedicated in a UU in Richmond, Virginia, where I was born. So, in case you were doubting my UU lifelong status. And my older brother Dylan says a very leading question about how, did you love nature as a child? Did you love it enough to chase down and catch a wild animal at Disney World? And to that, I'd say, you know the answer to that. And yes, I did catch a squirrel when I was 3 in Disney World. I don't remember doing that. Apparently I did, but I think I just caught it and released it. But yeah. Okay. There's none else. Announcements. March 22nd, today. Plant medicine seminar from 1 to 2 p.m. Next week, March 29th, Lines That Matter from Don Leek. And April 5th, Where Possibly and Actually Meets from Reverend Ted, and poetry group meets after service. And then you support UUSRF with your presence and your presence. I thank you all very much for attending. And coffee and treats in the kitchen from David. Sounds like a great time. And closing words.